The holidays are just around the corner, and if you're feeling some mixed emotions of excitement and dread, I know the feeling. Sometimes you just have to think about what matters most to you and keep focused on the things that bring you joy. But you may also benefit from a little bit of help and focus on body kindness. So I invite you to join me in our wonderful body kindness community. Visit bodykindnessbook.com and click Get Started. When you give your name and email, you will get instant access to the free Body Kindness mini e-course. I'll be checking in with you over email, and you'll get invited to join our group on Facebook. If you have questions, shoot me an email. It's Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com.
I'm grateful for cancer. It connected me with my body in a way that nothing else ever has before. It stripped you down to your essence, and you have to rebuild from that. And I'm grateful for that. It's like a clean slate. You get to reinvent how you relate to your body. You don't take anything for granted anymore. So there's nothing to not be grateful for, because it's like every day is something new now.
That was Amy Herbert. Amy is an accredited and practicing dietitian based in Brisbane, Australia. And she's also the blogger with Thoroughly Nourished Life, where she blogs about food, the non-diet approach, and finding gratitude in everyday moments. I think you folks are going to be in for a very interesting conversation here as we wrap up our body betrayal series. Amy was so honest with her experiences with her body and how they changed through multiple betrayals. And I really appreciate Amy's candor, especially in the second half of our conversation, where we discuss mental health and depression and how they intersect with body image concerns. And I just want to thank you all for listening to this series. I've gotten some wonderful feedback, and many more people would like to share their stories. So I'm hoping that's something that you'd be interested in too. You can always shoot me an email, Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com, and let me know. And now here's Amy.
Dear body, we've been together my whole life, but only in the last year have we really come to know each other and understand how vital our connection is. I've taken you for granted all these years, and then this year I was given a wake-up call that shook me to my core. When I was a child, we would run around under the summer sun, skin freckling and braids flying, diving into the pool with no shame, no thought about what we looked like. We just wanted fun. As I grew older, I learned from others that my body was to be constantly observed, critiqued, and generally found lacking. We were called names, vicious names, and so we retreated, and our connection to each other grew weaker. I spent years at university learning all about bodies, and the whole while I struggled with my relationship with you. I would spend hours at the gym burning away identity as well as calories. I would count calories, ruthlessly cut out flavors and enjoyment, and focus on fuel over pleasure. And in secret, I would swallow laxatives to purge what I couldn't out-exercise. I was running on shame, fueled by an inner disgust in my soft feminine body, yearned for the sharp bones and skinny thighs that others had so easily. And then I fell in love. And through this man, I started to learn that my body wasn't shameful. My curves weren't signs of failure. I learned that I wanted to linger over dessert with him more than I wanted a chiseled stomach. I wanted to laze in bed on a Sunday morning, listening to his quiet breathing, more than I wanted to be out running for miles. I wanted to experience joy and pleasure in cooking and sharing meals without letting shame in to ruin my appetite. I found body positivity and health at every size, and I started healing my relationship with food and exercise. I started caring for my body, being truly kind to you, and learning what you needed to thrive. Just when we were starting to get into step, along came cancer. Like a crack of lightning in a blue sky, we didn't know where it had come from. We didn't have time to think, actually, just to act, just to slice open my body and carve out the tumours. I had to surrender my body to professionals and hope that when I came out of this journey that we could form a new relationship. I have to thank cancer for making my relationship with my body even stronger. I had to start body acceptance all over again, learning to love the newly scarred skin I was in, giving my body the time it needed to rest and heal. We started our journey again, and this time it was hand in hand with kindness leading the way. I learned the healing power of rest. I learned to love a little extra squish around my hips when I regained weight lost due to nausea and surgery, the muscles that regrew in my thick thighs when I started walking again, the strength of my arms when I could care for myself and those I love again. Earlier this year, when I faced the prospect of losing the opportunity to use this body and this one precious life we're given, I had to learn quickly to cherish my body, to respect its ability to heal and grow and rise again. I had to learn kindness to nurse myself back to health. I had to learn that my body is an instrument, not an adornment. My body carries my spirit around so that I can learn and live and love and make the most of the time I am given. So body, now that we're partners again, let's live the heck out of this life. Yours, Amy.
Woohoo! Let's live the heck out of this life. Yes!
Yeah.
And while that ending excites me, I have to jump into the fact that you said I have to thank cancer. I'm just like, whoa, I mean, literally like mind blown. Like that is literally, if I had to look up a definition of resilience, well, actually post-traumatic growth is when you can feel grateful for what happens to you. So not like, I'm so glad I got cancer, but that you feel that it changed. So, I mean, I'd love for you to start we might be all over the place with the conversation, and that's okay. Because I have to go right to that. How can you thank cancer? Explain that to me.
I think this journey started so suddenly. I had no idea what was going to happen. And I've always thought that if you put a whole bunch of gratitude into something, you're going to enjoy the journey no matter what it is. So at the beginning, we were in complete shock, but we had a mantra that we would just figure it out. And while we were figuring it out, I wanted to be grateful for each step, because each step taught me something about myself or about my relationship, or brought me into contact with amazing, kind, caring people who helped me get through this whole journey. I'm grateful for cancer. It connected me with my body in a way that nothing else ever has before. It stripped you down to your essence, and you have to rebuild from that. And I'm grateful for that. It's like a clean slate. You get to reinvent how you relate to your body. You don't take anything for granted anymore. So there's nothing to not be grateful for, because it's like every day is something new now. It taught me that my relationship with my husband is far stronger than either of us could ever have imagined. He was there every single step of the way, and it connected us in a way that nothing else, I mean, I'm not a parent yet, but I assume nothing else beyond the birth of a child or something like that could. Yeah, I'm just grateful to the way it forced me to address the way that I feel about my body and the way that I conceptualize my body in the world. And it's taught me what really matters. I don't get hung up on, oh, I had an extra slice of pizza for dinner tonight. Oh, no. Mm-hmm. Now I don't think about that. I think, oh, my goodness, I had this amazing pizza party with my friends, and maybe I ate a little bit too much and I'm a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm willing to sacrifice that because I got to share this moment in this very fleeting life with these amazing people. I have to thank cancer. I'm very fortunate that my journey through cancer was very short, but it taught me so much in that time. And yeah, and it gave me back my body, which is a strange concept.
Well, and even when you talk in your letter about doing body acceptance all over again, and mentioning scars and, so what, I guess, I mean, yeah, like just even from the letter alone, you can really relate to just that idea of, hey, this is what we think is beautiful and amazing and, ticks all the boxes. Yeah. And here you are.
Yeah, a little bit different.
Outside of all that, good luck loving yourself. I mean, that's basically the problem, like just from appearance alone, the problem that we have to deal with. And then it's like, even I think, maybe, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like when people close to you heard cancer, and I mean, I understand, there's, I mean, that there's obviously fear related to uncertainty, and some of that is healthy, but I also imagine this sort of too much sympathy, right? Like they don't see that you're still there and you're still you, and you need like community and support, and not just, this sort of fear-based, reaction. So can you share more about that?
Yeah. To start on the community part, I was very fortunate. People just rallied around me. I was so lucky. My family are amazing every day anyway, but in this circumstance, they just pulled in. We rallied the troops. Anything that needed to be done got done. I have a funny story, actually. I thought I was going to lose my belly button as part of my surgery, which I've always seen as part of me that's actually still part of my mum, so it connects me to her. But I was really freaked out about it. So my dad brought around plaster of Paris and made a mold of my belly button. So just in case I lost it, I'd still have my belly button. But I mean, in other ways other than that, my mum came around every day when I got out of hospital and cleaned my house and took care of me when I couldn't care for myself, and made sure my dog got walked and my washing got done and all the other things. My dad was up there every day at the hospital after work. My sister came and like shaved my legs for me when I couldn't do it for myself. My family are just amazing, and my larger community as well. My best friends were there every day at the hospital to visit me, and all the way through the beginning of the process, asking me if I was okay, asking me afterwards, which I think is when people forget that you've been through this. When you look healthy again, they forget to ask you if you're doing okay. And because my journey was so short, people are like, oh, she looks healthy again. She's driving again. She's back at work. I was lucky enough to have people who understood that afterwards would probably be the hardest point for me. And they still ask me if I'm doing okay with everything. And I'm so fortunate. I truly believe I drew the most strength from my relationships with other people in this, because I didn't want to let them down. I didn't want them to, I mean, how awful is it that my parents had to face the prospect of losing their child? Like that's the most awful thing I could imagine. And so I couldn't do anything but be strong, because I didn't want them to go through that, and I didn't want them to think that I wasn't anything but okay. And also humor really helps in situations like this. Like, it's such a healthy coping mechanism that and that's just the way I've always coped with things, I think, is to make fun of them. But yeah, my community was my greatest source of strength here. Even people I haven't talked to for years contacting me and saying, well, I hope you're okay, and please let me know if there's anything I can do, and my sister went through this, or my mum went through this, and this is what they found helpful. I was really lucky to have a very strong community draw around me during that time. Yeah. And as to the scarring, I think we see so many, we're bombarded with images. I mean, that's part of this body positivity movement, is to, disrupt the images we're given every day for beauty. We're shown these women who don't ever have a scar, or if we're shown a scar, it's always in those ads for those silly creams or patches or whatever.
Yes, to get rid of it. Here's how you can get rid of it.
Here's how you take away this significant marker of something that happened in your life. I have a giant scar. It's 14 inches down the middle of my stomach. It's not going anywhere. And I really thought when I started this journey that I'd be freaked out, that it would really disrupt my relationship with my body, that I should, I looked into those creams and the patches and all that stuff. And then when I finally got it, and I stood in front of the mirror that first day at home, and when I was in hospital, I couldn't even stand up to look in the mirror, so it wasn't a problem. But when I stood up that first day at home to look in the mirror, I didn't freak out. It's a battle scar to me. It's a sign that I can survive anything. if I am ever doubting that I can do something, I just have to, kind of touch the top ridge where it sits, it just sits just below my brow line. I just touch that there and I think, you can do anything. Like, honestly, you've got this physical sign that you can survive one of the most brutal things a person has to go through.
Mm-hmm.
You can do anything.
Which is great. I mean, that is, it sounds like you believe in yourself more now after having, been through cancer. And like you've said several times, I mean, and it's still cancer. I mean, I know you're trying to say that my story, I was very fortunate in my story and it was a quick battle and everything like that, but it's still, that doesn't diminish to me the significance of what it means to one day be fine, the next day get a sign, and then the next day information that, congratulations, you have cancer. And I think the first thing that comes into our mind is, am I going to live or not? So it's stress, it's traumatic. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that those of us who have a good support network do better in the emotional response to what's happening. And it definitely plays a role in healing. It would be nice if everyone got the support that they needed,
Absolutely.
And I think too that sometimes we are afraid to ask for it. It sounds like your family was not even going to consider, they were just there.
I didn't get to ask, no.
But that feeling of like, oh, well, I don't want to bother them, or I just got to keep saying I'm all right and I'm fine and I don't need anybody and I don't need this, a part of proving your strength. And
I think post cancer was the hardest point for me to ask that. Once, I'm 7 months out now and, I'm functioning, my body's functioning, my left lobe of my liver has taken over the job of my right lobe that isn't there anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's now that sometimes I wake up and I get scared that it's going to come back, or I just have a bit of a moment where I really struggle to label myself a cancer survivor because of my journey being so short. I've worked in oncology before. I've seen people go through battles that have lasted years and recurrences and, metastasized cancer and things like that. And so I didn't feel like I'd earned that label. And so you talk about those things with your family and they're like, of course you're a survivor. You're this, look what you've done, look what you've gone through. The hardest person for me to ask for support was a professional. I've been in therapy before and I had to go back after this to get the support I needed post-cancer because it wasn't something that my family was equipped to deal with, and they shouldn't have to be. It was I needed someone to guide me through essentially a stage of grieving for the life I'd lived before, that innocence that is lost when you get that diagnosis. You're no longer a 29-year-old who's, planning her wedding and doing all these fun things. You're a cancer patient and that's what defines you while you're going through all this. And then afterwards you pop out the other end and people are like, oh, she's fine again. And especially when you don't have any visible signs of having been through an illness, your body, from what people see of me, I don't walk around in a crop top all day. So people can't see the signs of what I've been through. People see the outside shell as being fine, but inside you're still going through a healing process. Even once your body is fully healed, your mind is a little bit messed up, understandably. And that's when I found it hardest to ask for support. But it's so worth it, because whether you ask a professional, whether you ask a friend, whether you ask your partner for support, people generally, I believe 99% of the time, want to be helpful and nice to you. It's worth the asking for the support and for the strength that you get out of that connection.
Yeah, that is such an important point to make. And thank you for sharing that. In general, and I don't know what it's like for you in Australia. I imagine it's similar, but like in America, we pretty much shun mental health and the need.
Oh, yeah.
The need to, it's like the idea of seeing a therapist, especially, I feel like with maybe the baby boomer generation, I think it is getting more, but it's like this hush hush. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about going to see a therapist, or, we make assumptions that if somebody needs a therapist that, their life is just in shambles. And it's like, to me, it's more deprivation. It's another way we deny ourselves the human experience, and we deny ourselves that our well-being is important, Well,
it's going to therapy to me is another way of showing body kindness, because your brain is part of your body. Your emotions are part of your body, and if you don't address that, it's going to manifest itself in other ways that you treat your body. And it is very similar here in Australia to in the US with, mental health it's starting to become more of the conversation, but it's still seen as if you go to a therapist, you must have awful mental health issues and you must be crazy and you must have, your life must be awful. Whereas I'm very lucky to have grown up in a family that has used mental health support for years. And so to me, it wasn't shameful to go and ask for help. It's just a way that those of us who have perhaps a bit of more fragile emotional state, or, just need some help getting through some stuff, that's the way you do it. You go and see someone who's trained to help you learn how to cope, or how to move through things, or give you the tools to make you stronger. I'm very lucky that I didn't feel shame in that, but I really feel sympathy for people who do. And all I have to say is, like, 70% of adults will go through some sort of mental health issue in their lifetime. You're not alone. You're part of the majority, really, if you're going through something like that. And I just think you have to think of therapy or a psychiatrist or medication, whatever the path is that happens to be right for you. It's just part of taking care of yourself. It's just part of being kind to yourself, so that you can be a stronger or calmer or, more pleasant person to yourself to start off with, and then to other people. You're more able to offer people support when you're getting support yourself. I'm very lucky to have friends and family who all don't all have mental health issues, but they understand the value of mental health support. And I'm sad for people who don't have that, who still see it as very shameful.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think they see it as very shameful, or just, oh, well, things have to be really bad before I take that step.
You have to be really sick or really, out of it to go and seek that support. Whereas, you can just be going through a bit of stress in your life, or have a rough, diagnosis, or your relationship needs a little bit of massaging. And those therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, they're all trained to help you through that. Why wouldn't you make the most of those people's training?
Yeah. And, you might be surprised. I mean, we could peel all the layers, like, in the US, people need healthcare and don't have it. So, if you don't have healthcare, are there any community ways to get the help that you need? I would go there, but that we know that's a disparity. But if you do have healthcare, there are probably therapists in your area that are in network with your insurance. And so I would start there, especially if you have financial concerns and, are concerned about the disposable income to start and continue in therapy. Another thing that people don't really know, and I've just learned this through my years of working with clients and working with lots of other therapists, that even if it's really important that you find someone who is a good fit for you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so you might do some research. You might look and find that they are under insurance. They say that they're an out-of-network provider or something like that. And all that, you have to clarify with them for sure. But in everyone I've talked to, all that means is that they don't participate in the program, but they can give you the diagnosis and the receipt, basically, which is called a super bill. It literally has the diagnosis codes on it. They give, if you have the income to pay for the session in the session, they give you the super bill and you submit that to insurance. And it varies from policy to policy, but generally therapy will get covered by insurance. So then it just becomes this kind of annoying game of
it's administration.
Yes. Here's a little bit of money. Here's the session. Now I wait to get my payback minus what the copay would have been. And that's, I don't mean to, say, oh, it's so easy if that's how I'm making it sound. But I do think a lot of people avoid it because of irrational fears about how it all works or how they could make it work. And, I saw the opportunity to share that, because what's coming out from your story is that when you were at most risk of losing your resilience was actually almost like this, not real abandonment, right? But almost like this feeling of you are actually the only one who physically went through it. And so nobody else can even imagine what that was like. And vast majority of the people were like, okay, great. She's great. And so then it's this concern that they gave in the beginning was no longer needed. And so they put their energy elsewhere. But then really you kind of feel back to isolation. And so no matter where you are in your body betrayal story, you may be at a point where you feel a little lost, a little isolated, a little or a lot, and you need somebody to help. And, in your case, which I would say would be in, many cases of somebody who's going through a trauma, that a therapist was critical and you being resilient.
Yeah, it's very intense when you're going through it. I had 3 weeks from my diagnosis to my surgery. And during that time, you're seeing countless doctors, you're having blood tests, you're going to scans, you're in the process. And then you have your surgery. And I was in hospital for, I think, a week after that. And it's very intense. There's nurses on you like every half an hour checking you out, doctors poking and prodding you, dressings being changed. You're still in that process. And then I came home, and it was a very intense month of recovery, of having to force myself to rest because I'm not a person inclined to rest. So I had to make myself acquainted with the couch and ask people to help me do things. I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't bend up and down, all of those things. And then after that month, I was back at work, and it was just kind of back into life. I had a life to live, and I had to get straight back into that. But it also meant that people weren't constantly, which they didn't need to constantly, but they weren't checking in with me perhaps as much. You're not in that process anymore. You're not seeing your doctor every day or every second day anymore. You're only seeing them once a month or once every 3 months. And so you fall out of that, you get back into normal life, but your brain has to adjust to the fact that you just went through this, as you put it, as it's a trauma. Your brain has to adjust from normal brain to trauma brain, back to normal brain, and then that between trauma brain and normal brain, there's a bit of disconnect. There's a few wires that get crossed and tangled that need to be that you need to learn how to untangle those, or to create this new normal brain, because it's not the same normal brain you had before. But you don't need to be in that trauma situation all the time, ready to cope or react or just keep going through the process that you're going through at that time. You need to be back. You need to untangle those things so that you can get back to enjoying your normal life, because after all of it, there is so much amazing stuff to still be lived, that you can't let your trauma brain be constantly reacting to that, or flashing back to things that have happened before, or dwelling on things, or worrying about what's going to happen in the future. You also have to you're entitled to be able to go out and live your life again. I went and got therapy afterwards because this year I also got married and my best friend had a baby, and there were all these amazing things happening, and I didn't want that trauma constantly clouding it and discoloring these wonderful, amazing things that were happening. I deserved to enjoy those things and to create amazing memories after all of this had happened, after my body had betrayed me, after I'd been through all the processes, after I'd been through the surgery and the recovery and all that. I needed to readjust and to be in a healthy place to be able to enjoy those things, because I didn't want to look back in 5 years and think cancer ruined all that stuff for me. You know, these are big moments that you only get to have once. I wanted to be able to enjoy those things. And so finding mental health support, just finding support from my family, and just in myself, focusing on a daily gratitude and a daily and mindfulness was so important to getting back to enjoying these things and living a normal life again.
Girl, there's the second letter in that testimony right there. I mean, you're so right. It's like, and what I appreciate about that point too is that the fact that you could feel this way even with all this love and support that you express having gratitude for, right? So like, I'm a lucky one because I had all this love and support. I'm a lucky one because my cancer did not last that long, right? But you can still deal with the effects of a traumatic experience and at the same time know that you're worthy of healing and of growing and coming out of it, you know, and that's what, you know, it's, you know, body kindness, I talk about like planning for your bounce back essentially. And it's just like, basically there are two ways where we can go, and we can succumb to our body betrayals, and you know, a lot can impact that. Our level of support, where our mental health is, you know, and all the things that affect that, like our socioeconomic status, right? You know, like there is a genetic predisposition, but there are all these other factors that you may not be able to control that could predict somebody who's just going to suffer tremendously through an adversity. But on the hopeful side and on the flip side is the fact that there is this thing called resilience, where even though you're going through something difficult and, you know, you might question, why is this happening to me? Or, you know, am I going to miss out on what's in my mind for the ideal wedding and all these ideal life experiences that I'm supposed to get to have access to? You know, am I giving up all that? Or all these things getting ruined? And that just kind of pushes, you know, it pushes you down further into the trauma. And so, you know, is essentially requiring this connection to a deeper meaning.
Yeah, I think I'd kind of had training for this trauma. That sounds correct. But I'd had years of letting very disordered eating and very disordered relationships with exercise ruin so many things for me. I was so focused on exercise that, you know, I didn't really enjoy the lead up to my little sister's wedding, or Christmases and birthdays and holidays and things like that, ruined by a really crappy relationship with food and exercise. And I that had trained me to see that I had to get through this. Not that I had to get through it and be the strongest person ever and not feel guilty and not feel traumatized or anything like that, but I had to allow myself to have moments where I could just breathe and let all that mess and darkness go and just enjoy whatever was happening. The day that I left ICU and went back to the normal ward, my best friend, when I was allowed to eat something again, my best friend brought up a picnic and put a picnic on my hospital bed with all these, soft foods that I was allowed to eat, not too much flavoring, anything like that. I was so sore and so sorry for myself. But instead of focusing on that, I thought, oh my goodness, what a gift. What an amazing thing to happen. Let's just enjoy this adventure that I'm having in hospital for a little while. And then I can go back to feeling sorry for myself. But you have to make moments for joy, even in the middle of really awful circumstances. And I'm very privileged when I say this. I have top medical care. I'm very lucky with my insurance, very lucky to have access to amazing doctors and amazing healthcare. But I think whether it's an eating disorder, whether it's cancer, whether it's something else awful that's happening to you, there are still little moments of amazing things that happen. And if you blind yourself to those, then you are just letting that trauma suck you down even deeper. Whereas sometimes if you can let those little bits of joy in, or those little bits of interest or adventure or love or something that you've learned that's really interesting. I'd never had an MRI before this, and they're fascinating. But if you let yourself just get sucked down into the awfulness of what's happening to you, you don't let those bits of light in, and sometimes those bits of light are all you need to keep going.
Bits of light.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I think.
I mean, when you're in the middle of eating a shit sandwich, right?
Yeah. You take time.
Yeah. Yes. Can I find that? Exactly. I think there could be worse things, but no. But that is, that's turning toward optimism. What's the most, or what is, a more optimistic view of this that still feels true, right? So it's like you can let yourself feel that pain.
Optimism,
yeah.
No. Mm-hmm. It's not I don't think it's a false optimism. I think it's extreme mindfulness. I think if you're extremely mindful of an awful situation that you're going through, no matter what it is, if you remain mindful through that, you're going to see little bits of good things happening. It's life isn't awful all the time, even if you're going through an awful thing.
Yes.
It might be something really simple that might be like, wow, that hospital gown is really soft, or gee, that nurse was really kind to me, or hey, that old guy on the ward gave me a wink when I walked past him with my catheter hanging out. Like, it might be.
I still got it.
Yeah, exactly. It might be something small and stupid. I think I get this from my mum. She's a hopeless optimist. I think there's got to be something little that you can grasp onto that's going to bring something a little bit happy. And I've suffered from depression. I've suffered from depression my entire life. But even in those darkest moments, there's still just something little. And if there isn't, maybe you need to reach out and ask someone for help. You definitely do. But there's always something little to notice that just reconnects you to that wonderful, joyful human experience rather than the suffering and the trauma.
Right. And by connecting to the joy, it will actually help shift your perspective as you're going through the trauma, and eventually I think will help you work your way through it as well.
Yeah.
It's just, we need to not take it so literally, like, this sandwich tastes so good.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this situation really does suck. But
no, it sucks. It absolutely sucks. There were days where I was like, I can't wash myself. I can't wash my hair. I hate having greasy hair. I couldn't wash my own hair. And I was just like, this is really going to suck. And then I had to ask for help. I had to ask my mum, which is, not an easy thing to do, to ask someone else to come into the shower with you and help you bathe yourself as a 30-year-old woman. That really sucked. I had my surgery the day before my 30th birthday. I spent my birthday in the ICU. I wasn't allowed to eat. I wasn't allowed to drink. I wasn't even awake for most of my birthday.
Well, if I couldn't eat or drink on my birthday, I'd want to be kind of not awake either, but.
Yeah. I had tubes hanging. I had a massive catheter in my neck with stuff going in and out. It could have sucked royally. But then my best friend showed up and told me the sex of the baby she was about to have. What a beautiful moment to have, even though, the most of the day really sucked. I was in a lot of okay. But why would I, forfeit the joy of that special moment, or, the lovely nurse who helped me early in the morning when I was really uncomfortable, and she just sat there and stroked my hair until I fell asleep. Like, how am I going to erase the joy of those, or the beauty and the connection in those moments just because the rest of the day sucked?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But,
no, I mean, that is a great perspective. It's just like, how do I sit here and tolerate this stuff that does suck and that is bad and that I wish would go away, but it's not going away anytime soon? How do I tolerate this stuff and still engage?
It.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
suck.
Yeah. No, I'm writing down notes because, like, I'm thinking of the question of, okay, so what would you say to someone who's listening who feels betrayed by their body? And it could be, from diet culture and not meeting the norms. It could be from eating disorder. It could be cancer. It could be anything, just any sort of feeling of like, I just don't feel connected to my body, whether it's I never had that connection or the connection is lost. Like, what would you say to that listener who is, hearing what you went through and is thinking about, well, how, like, what are the skills? What are the traits that I could try? A couple things I picked up on was about feeling the feels.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, this sure is shitty, but I'm going to be open to something good too. Right.
Yeah. I think firstly, you're worthy. You are absolutely worthy, no matter what you are, what you look like, what you earn, anything like that. You as a human, just based on your absolute existence in this universe, are worthy of getting through whatever it is, of experiencing joy, and of moving towards whatever better is for you. Secondly, I think, feel the feels. If it sucks, it's going to suck. Just let it suck. Just like sometimes there's nothing you can do about it other than just just eat the shit sandwich. Sometimes you've just got to do that. But I don't think while you're eating that shit sandwich, don't let yourself be blinded to the beauty that is out there or the interesting things that you come across. Even if you can't find something that makes you happy, maybe you can find something that made you interested, or that made you laugh, or that made you be outside of your own shitty situation for a moment. And even sometimes while you're going through a trauma and you're feeling the feels and you're eating the shit sandwich and all that stuff, you've got to remember sometimes that it's not all about you. Like there are moments where I was so grateful to have a distraction, and it's okay to let yourself be distracted by something amazing happening in someone else's life, or just something stupid like a funny ad on television or something. Just, feel the feels, let yourself go through it, but don't let yourself be blinded to happiness or joy if it does come across. You don't have to always constantly be thinking about what you're going through. You can let yourself be distracted. Distraction is sometimes really awesome for your brain. I also think don't be afraid to ask for help if it's professional, if it's a friend, if it's your spouse or your partner. Don't be afraid to ask for help. People love to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
People really feel valued when you trust them enough to say, hey, feeling the feels today, need a hug, or I really feel crappy today. Do you think you could make dinner? Or anything they can do to help. People generally like helping other people. That's how we've gotten so far in civilization, I think. But don't be afraid to ask for help, because generally people won't turn you down and they won't make you feel bad for asking for help.
Yeah.
I think
I love that list.
Yeah, and when all else fails at the end of the day, eat an ice cream, because that just makes everything better.
Yes. Well, actually, and I mean, come on, let's just be real. Soothing with food is
it's an okay coping mechanism.
Exactly.
And you know what? When you've had that taken away from you, I couldn't eat for a week. So I could not soothe with food. And you have to find so many other coping mechanisms. And sometimes you realize that all those other coping mechanisms, be damned, you really do want to soothe with food. And it sucks when you can't.
Mm-hmm. So as soon as you're on the clear to eat whatever, liquids and then clear liquids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
As soon as you get, ice cream is technically a liquid, it melts. So as soon as you're on liquids, take it back. Or if that's, I do think it's also an important thing to think about. There might not be an external reason for why you're supposed to be limiting certain foods, like not an allergy or an intolerance, nothing medical, and just purely because, somewhere you read or somebody that seems trustworthy has basically, made you to continue to believe that you have absolute control over your health and your appearance and your weight by all your food choices. And that, that thing you're about to eat is going to kill you. That's all a bunch of bull crap.
Oh, yeah.
But when you can acknowledge that that's all from an external place of oppression. And then it's okay, well, how do I let myself, eat and enjoy these different foods? What I find is that, have some compassion. It might take practice and time. You might have to start with a little bit and repeat it. But, upholding all of that stuff is still a belief that, something bad is going to happen to you if you eat certain foods. And it's mostly a fear of weight gain or a fear that you won't lose the weight you want to lose. But that's what you need to face and get a grip on. And if you're in a larger body and I feel like there are people who are ready to let go of weight loss and diets, but it's more about building your resilience around the assumption others people make.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cause I hate seeing. Well, I'll tell you more what I love seeing. I'm thinking of Virgie Tovar and in her Instagram. I love that woman. Don't you love her? Look at me eat this. It's just she always has
Virgie Tovar.
Yes, and she has two middle fingers always held up nice and high for diet culture. And I love to see the power in her rejection and her just kind of taking back this, I'm going to eat what I want and you're going to shut the fuck up, basically.
Exactly. It's none of your business. It's absolutely none of your business what another person chooses to put in their mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That is just, if I want to go and eat a burger for lunch, I mean, I'm very lucky I have thin privilege. But if I'm at lunch with a larger friend of mine and she wants to eat a burger, it is none of my business what she's putting in her body. And it is none of her business what I'm putting in my body. It's you cannot judge what someone else is putting on their plate because you don't understand what's between them and the plate, and you don't understand what they're hungry for or what they've been through that day or what, any circumstance they're in. It's just none of our business what other people put in their mouths.
Exactly.
As they say in yoga, keep your eyes on your own mat, keep your eyes on your own plate. Honestly, I'm sure we all have enough food issues ourselves to not go out and judge someone else for what their food issues are. Exactly. Or if they're free with their food, if they've found the joy in eating and they've reconnected to their hungers and they are really good at judging their hunger and fullness levels or what they're, what they need that day, what their body's asking them to put in it, we can't judge that. And we can only learn from people who are fully accepting of their body's hungers, whether it's a physical hunger or a mental hunger or a, hunger for something else. We should learn from those people who are in tune with that.
Yeah. That and the people who have, through credentialing, earned the role of trusted food experts. So whether that's
absolutely,
dietitians, doctors,
nutritionist, a
yes.
therapist, someone who has experience in food, obviously. But
wait. But what I'm going to call out is that you've studied in some books that has taught you something, but like you're human too. So you're going to look at something with your frame of your current belief system. And I just feel like far too often we're patting ourselves on the back, I was so helpful giving this, quote about how to lose weight quickly, or, I was helpful and, showing all these sugar swaps. Like that's a popular thing. Swap this for that and healthifying this and that. And it's just like, and it can be a tough thing, a tough line to walk if you're discovering health at every size and trying to figure out intuitive eating and non-dieting. Cause, so I want to have, let everyone feel permission to be where they need to be. But I think we have to look at all of our own stuff very, very critically, because we far too often just re-traumatize and re-stigmatize and just uphold diet culture when we just tell ourselves that what we're doing is fine, normal, wanted, helpful, and all these things that just might not be.
No, and that's what you've got to constantly question your own practice. I mean, you could be dragging in your own issues with food or exercise into your interactions with clients, or quotes that you give, or an article that you write, or a blog post, or even a tweet that you put out. You can drag all these your own issues with food in, and it's I've just taken to unfollowing people on Instagram. Specifically annoys me, and I've just gotten to unfollowing people who put up too many posts about those acai bowl things. It tastes awful. I don't know why people eat them. But anyway, if you're putting up pictures of just perfect plates and perfect food and all fruit and veggies all the time, and then you're going, but I'm health at every size and I'm accept all foods, you're not showing that to people. You've got to question your own output sometimes and your own processes, and that's why it's so helpful to be part of professional Facebook pages or things like that, because there is still, and this comes back to resilience, there is still a pressure on dietitians and health professionals to toe that weight loss line. It takes a certain resilience to come up against that, even if it is resilience that is now backed by studies and facts and peer-reviewed evidence, to come up against that and be like, well, I'm sorry, I know we're having problems here, particularly in Australia with our accreditation body. It takes a certain resilience to stand up to that and be like, well, I'm sorry, but in my practice, I'm not going to preach weight loss at all to anyone. I'm just going to focus on helping this person be healthier and more connected to their body and more connected to food. And that resilience too comes from a community of PAYS professionals and non-diet professionals, and this growing movement online of all those people connecting, like Fiona Sutherland and all these other amazing people who are connecting with not only dietitians but fat activists and body activists, all connecting together to stand up in resilience to this medical body that's still constantly going on about how weight loss is the best thing you can do for yourself. There is resilience in that group of people now saying, well, hey, you know what? Weight loss isn't the best thing you can do for your body. And we're not going to say it anymore.
Yeah. Well, and not only it's not the best thing that you can do, but it's actually quite harmful. And the information is out there. It's just people don't want to look because it goes against their belief system, and they just don't want to do the work. I mean, and it is hard and it sucks and it's scary, but do the work,
Exactly. It's hard work, and it goes against the dream you've been sold of, when you lose 20 pounds, you'll be able to fit into that dress you haven't worn since you were in high school. Or you'll wow them when you walk into, after your vacation and you've lost 10 pounds, or, especially around this time of year, it just starts coming out in waves of those 10 pounds in 10 days or whatever, and look great in your holiday outfit and all those things, and how to low-cal holiday treats. Those things start coming out, and it's just the work behind body kindness and behind health at every size and non-diet acceptance and all those things. It's hard work. It really is. But it's so worth it. And it goes against all the things we've been sold. But once you get on the other side, you can see that, oh my God, what a massive lie. And I can be happy in the body I'm in, whether it's, whether it's a 500-pound body or whether it's a body that's got scars all over it, or whether it's a body that's bald because you're going through treatment, or whether it's a body that, is underweight because you've been suffering all those years with an eating disorder. It doesn't, whatever your body looks like, you can come out the other end and accept what you are and what you look like, and maybe your body changes through all of that. But at the end of the day, it's worth the work.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you truly care about helping people or helping yourself and all those things, it is worth it. And, and then I would add to that also respecting other people's bodies no matter what. So whether they are sick, you could be sick at any size,
Absolutely.
No matter what is going on, the first thing we should see are human beings, and we should be leading with love and compassion and connection. And, and I mean, it's good for everybody. And I think that if you can align with that mindset, then you do need to reflect some of that inward. If it's hard for you to give that love and compassion to yourself, but you can relate to that mindset, then it is also your job to give to yourself what you want to put out into the world.
Yeah, you can only take your client as far as you've taken yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Evelyn Tribole said that to me.
Is that Evelyn Tribole? Yeah.
Eating. You can only take people as far as you have gone. I was like, ooh, okay, thank you. And it's true. It is true. Well, I have really loved talking with you today. This has been so good.
Thank you so much for having me on, Rebecca. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate your bravery and vulnerability and sharing your stories, and that just, how, especially it was so interesting about, trauma with your eating disorder, and then trauma with cancer. And then, I mean, like I said in that letter, thanking cancer, that was just like mind blowing. And yeah, I just really feel like we covered a lot of really important things about what it does feel like to get knocked down. Oh, I'm going to quote Chumbawamba, I guess, and get back up again. They're never going to get me down. And yeah, your tips for what we should do if we're feeling betrayed were also good. So how can folks get in touch or connect or follow you so that they can kind of, reach out if they need to and follow what you're doing?
Sure. My blog is thoroughlynourishedlife.com, and that's got links to my professional practice. My Facebook page is Thoroughly Nourished Life Nutrition. I'm also on Instagram, which is probably my favorite social media, at thoroughly_nourished_life. I'm sorry, that one's not easier.
Well, I will link in the show notes, so that's the important
it might be easier. And those are probably the three best ways to get in contact with me. Yeah, I'm happy for people to email me. I'm thoroughlynourishedlife@gmail.com. I'm not hard to find. If you go to that main website, thoroughlynourishedlife.com, everything's linked to on that page. So thank you so much for having me, Rebecca. It's actually Neuroendocrine Cancer Day today, which is perfect timing for our talk.
Oh, wonderful. Well, yeah. And it is a celebration. A celebration and another form of advocacy that you've participated in. And thank you so much for doing that work as well.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
And that's the episode. If you have your own body betrayal story, I'd love to hear it. Please shoot me an email at rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. That's REBECCA @bodykindnessbook.com. And let's continue the conversation in my free Facebook group. Search Body Kindness Podcast on Facebook and request to join. And if you like listening, please leave a rating and review or tell a friend. If you'd like to hear how you can get signed Body Kindness books for gifts for the holiday season or special events, email me, Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com.